Humans as a species, no matter what culture or upbringing you came from, have always had a fascination with heroism, so much that it's ingrained to our children, into history books, stories, but not all stories are created equal.
Every culture has looked up to some kind of hero, whether it be an athlete or a spokesman or even a great artist. In our popular culture, this admiration for heroes is most representative in the superhero genre and other genres similar to it, such as sci-fi and fantasy.
But because, as a whole, anyone and everyone can define what a hero is. And over time, there can be loss in translations, morality changing for over thousands of years. A lot of people, whether they want to admit it or not, don't like it when heroes make horrible mistakes that they consider against their values. They want a hero that's likable, but not relatable in the fact that even people can betray what they want and cannot get everything they want and have to betray that. It is true that Aang injured his best friend and lost his other friend Appa and even his own tribe, but upon reflection, these issues were resolved almost too easily. Like they really don't matter. With Aang, he may have a relatable outlook, but in truth, it was rigged for him from the beginning.
I don't like to lose.
Then you never faced that situation.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
It was all too easy, and he never faced any definite loss. And when he did, it was glossed over for 9 episodes. This can be bad pacing, but it was never mentioned through those 9 episodes again until they mention it 9 episodes later. But if you really think about it even more, what does he triumph after defeating the Fire Lord on a personal basis? Rey, who is a Mary Sue to a lot of people, in truth, she is a flawed character, but just like Aang, her triumphs and losses were never fully earned. Honestly, I don't blame people for wanting these characters as their heroes, because all of us just want the easy way, that to follow the rules and everything will come your way no matter what you do, you'll always do the right thing. I understand that. But does it justify that want to begin with when all the bad and nothing good comes out of it? It's like that scene from Soul, but no, because what you want can't come for you, you have to come to it.
I should note that we are not saying that Aang and Rey didn't reach out to their respective audiences, or that they were the worst written characters. It's about how they didn't reach out to their audiences as well as they did. If their respective writers had more time to discipline their protagonists, their respective stories would have been all the more rewarding to experience.
Deku and Ahsoka might be similar to Aang and Rey, but in truth they only have shallow similarities. The enemies that Deku and Ahsoka face are more opposing than the ones Aang and Rey had to confront. There were no one trick up their sleeves to win the day in their favor. Deku almost caused the death of his own childhood friend turned tormentor, Bakugo, yet he saved him. With Ahsoka, on her first space battle, she was the cause of many casualties in that fight. You might say that they were too young, but in truth, that never really mattered, because every age can face these sort of problems. You can't hide away from the unpleasantries of this horrific world we live in, or flee. Aang and Rey were overcompensated and were not called out when they fled.
Because you are a character doesn't mean that you have character.
This doesn't mean that Aang and Rey are inherently awful characters. They're just lazy written for the authors to pose their wants, but not earned wants. They just want their cake right away in favor of themselves. Great ideas with horrible writing is useless.
But talent without training is nothing.
And that is what these stories are in truth to me on a personal level. But when you compare Aang with Deku and Rey with Ahsoka, you might begin to recognize that one set of characters had more to overcome than their opposites. Aang and Rey didn't confront many obstacles that challenged them personally and morally. Whenever such challenges did occur, it was never organic, because there was no lasting consequences. It is true that Aang injured his best friend and lost his other friend Appa and even his own tribe, but upon reflection, these issues were resolved almost too easily. Like, they really don't matter because they were solved but Aang definitely didn't want to use firebending again, even though it's a part of saving the world. It doesn't, but he doesn't even, it's just, when it's brought again, I don't want to do it because it's completely irrelevant. It's hiding the fact that it's irrelevant. In direct comparison, Deku, the main protagonist of My Hero Academia, always had overwhelming odds against him in every step of his life. In every step of his life, he had to endure 10 years of trauma and almost could have gone insane and become a villain himself.
What made Deku so relatable, and by extension, what made the show so engaging, was the immense scale of every obstacle that Deku had to overcome, and the consequences that came with them. He started off being mocked by his own former friend for having no quirks and with no hope of becoming a hero. This obstacle was overcome when Deku met and impressed All Might himself by saving his own tormentor. Next, Deku could barely contain his new power inherited from All Might and constantly crushed his bones to use his powers, but through sheer determination and selfless attitude to look out for others, Deku managed to get to UA High in Class 1A. Throughout the show, Deku would constantly be pushed beyond Plus Ultra his limits through disciplined mentors and overwhelming opponents like Muscular Man.
Remember the bad guys on those shows you used to watch on Saturday mornings? Well, these guys are not like those guys. They won't exercise restraint because you're children. They will kill you if they get the chance.
His efforts as a character are what made him relatable. Another comparison to make is in how Aang and Deku approach the task of saving the youth. This may seem unfair given how Aang's story barely has much time for this aspect, whereas Deku can have entire arcs dedicated to it, but even the baby that Aang had to save ran off on its own. In comparison, we see Deku put his full effort into selflessly protecting the youth in not just a single episode, but with entire arcs, and a whole movie. The point we're trying to make here is that Deku is more relatable to Aang because he has more to overcome with his flaws. Deku may not be completely likable, but he is relatable. Rei and Ahsoka have much in common. Both are action heroines from one of the most beloved sci-fi franchises in Western culture. Both could wield the Force and would have many struggles to overcome. Both ran away from their intended roles as Jedi. The difference is in terms of writing, in that Rei feels more corporately artificial, whilst Ahsoka is more genuinely organic. At face value, this seems unfair since TV series by their very design can allow more time to develop characters, but people have critiqued TV shows like the new Boba Fett show for not developing characters properly. So, TV doesn't always guarantee good writing. Movies have the advantage of being concise with their character development when done right. The problem with Rei is that she wasn't properly developed, despite the intriguing concepts surrounding her, which were then unfortunately used as gimmicks. Personally, I was rather fond of Rei's yearning for family and fear of destiny before Rise of Skywalker completely botched all prior development. It was implied by Kylo Ren and Maz Kanata that Rei had always known her parents weren't coming back, but in her pain she refused to admit it. This flaw in her character comes full circle in The Last Jedi, and makes sense given the clues we got. At that time, she could be inspiring to provoke that you don't have to be related to someone popular to find success in life. The last scene with the stable boy even hinted at that. Rei arose from her unimpressive life and arose above her situation. Because of this, I didn't perceive her as that much of a badly written character. Until Rise of Skywalker came out and ruined her character development.
If it already wasn't good from the beginning.
In Rise of Skywalker, Rey is revealed to be a Palpatine and later changes her name to Skywalker. This ruins all prior development for Rey because there was little to no build-up to this revelation in the previous two movies, and as a result, the ultimate messages are extremely muddled.
In comparison, Ahsoka was trained from a very young age as a Jedi and having a decade of experience in the Jedi art.
Bested by a girl who had never held a lightsaber.
But she wanted to learn more and gain more experience, but her family issues are irrelevant to her growth. Unless you count the circuit brother and Anakin Skywalker. If you completely remove any blood tie to the story beats from Rey and Ahsoka, it becomes more clear which character is more developed. Because throughout the entire show, Ahsoka doesn't rely on any facts concerning her identity. What is her greatest strength? Is that she is truly fearless. Now let's compare Deku and Ahsoka. Deku and Ahsoka are similar in every facet of the character. Izuku Midoriya, aka Deku, met the greatest hero in the world, and everyone admired and adored him. In a similar facet, Anakin Skywalker, who Ahsoka would become apprenticed to before the Clone Wars, was already a popular Jedi because of his incredible talent, and over time grew to be a true war hero. All Might and Anakin were both hesitant to take on their respective apprentices, but the main difference between Deku to Ahsoka and Aang to Rey is their mentors refused to train them, not by obligation of to train them by obligation of moral duty, because Aang has to save the world no matter what. He has to save it, even whether he wants it to do or not, out of his choice. Rey has to be the hero because Kathleen Kennedy wants her to be. But Deku and Ahsoka were more brash in their approach. Deku was willing to sacrifice himself to rectify his mistake and save Bakugo, whilst Ahsoka, on Anakin's first mission with her, showed resourcefulness and quick wit in the battlefield.
Young man, you too can become a hero.
You're reckless, little one. You never would have made it as Obi-Wan's Padawan, but you might make it as mine.
We as an audience witnessed their journeys right from the beginning. We see them accept their given roles and overcome their oppositions and opponents to see if they are worthy of those roles. What makes them more relatable is that they don't always win, but when they do, it's because they've learned from their mistakes.
And by letting them be weak, by letting them be truly flawed, we shatter the myth and expose the person underneath. And it's only from here that heroes have the space to learn and grow and fail, where their actions begin to carry real weight and purpose, where victories and consequences really matter. It's from here that a hero starts to feel like an actual person. From here, they start to feel real.
Making heroes vulnerable adds more stakes to overcome. It's the main reason why Superman as a character has kryptonite as his main weakness, but given the wrong writers, it would be his only weakness. Deku and Ahsoka show multiple weaknesses in their journeys for heroism, which makes their victories all the greater and their defeats the more bitter. The strengths and weaknesses for well-written heroes require a balance to make things fair. Don't give your heroes the easy treatment. Bring them down to their lowest and make it meaningful. Don't gloss over their struggles. Deku tends to overthink and is highly inexperienced with his quirk, but his knowledge on heroes gives him a strategic edge, and his determinism enables him to master his quirk. Ahsoka is often brash and stubborn like her master, but patience and maturity enable her to grow and to keep her allies close. Even when these heroes do achieve, there is still room for growth, which further motivates their journeys. Their relationships to their mentors give them insight on how to handle their talents, even when they have periods of doubting their own abilities, but not to the point where people are over-lecturing them. Even Anakin is sick of all that. Through their experiences, they make deeper bonds with their mentors and friends. They even get to learn and know their enemies more. During life-changing moments of their journeys, both of their mentors fall. One lost his peak strength, whilst the other succumbed to evil. Both heroes eventually came to the point where they could no longer rely on their main mentors, as much as they did in the past. They had to step up and become the heroes others could rely on.
Aang and Rey did have a difficult choice. With Aang, it was to choose either the Avatar state or save Guitar's life. For Rey, it was either light side or dark side. But both choices are admittedly flawed, yet Aang was willing to screw up the entire world to save Guitar, yet the Earth Kingdom and the world was fine anyway. Rey could have joined Ben Solo Kylo Ren, but decided not to join him. How to fix this is both Aang and Rey willing to get their hands evil for good ends. Aang having the Avatar state to save the world and later having to deal with the consequences of losing Guitar. Hell, with so many people dying because of him, but him willing to take that up and take responsibility of that. With Rey, she would have had an engaging arc of her falling to the dark side, only to gradually return to light with Ben. With Ahsoka, when Maul convinced her of Palpatine's plan, she was initially willing to join him. After she murdered her entire battalion out of survival, she sacrificed her own master and acknowledged, whether she would admit it or not, that she would let go of Anakin forever. With Deku, he was constantly willing to betray the rules in order to do what he felt was right, even if it meant willing to allow his friends to disrespect him and lose all faith in him. In Heroes Rising movie, he was willing to sacrifice his own quirk once for all, just to save the universe.
It was my dream. Sometimes, to do what's right, we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams.
Deku is self-sacrificial, Aang is an entitled brat, Ahsoka is morally flexible, and while Rey is a morally clingy dumbass.
It is because he is not ready to give up his ties yet. It is much like Jedi who will not give up their code. It is to surrender yourself, to make yourself a slave to a teaching or belief that makes it so that belief will always rule you. Are you prepared to give up all that is a Jedi entirely? Until then, you will always be weak, but your willingness to break those ties is a lesson in strength. To believe in an ideal is to be willing to betray it. It is something no Sith or Jedi has ever truly learned. That is the lesson of strength.
It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy?
At last we will have revenge.
Remember, the first and only reality of the Sith. There can only be two.
There is much to be skeptical of in this world. So it no longer surprises me to learn how many people don't really believe in anything. What's the point? For many of us, the road is a difficult one, but the path is always there for us to follow, no matter how many times we may fall.
But in the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow, even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer.
It's a hard world to live in, but the greatest heroes rise up to overcome it. These heroes have the potential to be of such appreciation that they will ultimately inspire others to take up the same path as a hero.